The forest smelled like death. Not the sharp, immediate stench of fresh corpses, that would come later. This was older, deeper. The smell of earth that had drunk too much blood, of trees whose roots fed on things that should have stayed buried. Wet pine, rotting leaves, the metallic tang of old iron in soil that had seen too many men fall. November 18th, 1944, 6:42 in the morning. Private First Class Silas Garrett crouched behind a fallen oak somewhere in the Hürtgen Forest, Germany. 19 years old, 38 days in country. Still alive, which made him luckier than most. The forest stretched in every direction. Skeletal trees, grey sky pressing down like a coffin lid. Ground fog that clung to everything like wet wool, turning the world into shapes and shadows. Somewhere out there, in that maze of shadow and mist, a German sniper was waiting. The same German who had killed 8 Americans in 10 days. The same German nobody could find. Silas pressed his cheek against the cold stock of his Springfield rifle. The wood was slick with morning dew. His breath came in shallow pulls, not from fear, well, not entirely from fear, mostly from the lesson his father had taught him in the coal mines back home. Breathe shallow in the dark. The dust can kill you faster than the cave-in. Good advice in a mine shaft. Good advice in a forest where every sound could get you killed. His spotter, Sergeant Roy Henderson, lay 3 feet to his left, 56 years old. Face like cracked leather, worn thin by 2 wars and 3 decades of hard living. Deep lines around his eyes. Scar tissue on his neck where shrapnel had kissed him in the Argonne. Eyes that had seen things they would never unsee. Henderson had fought in the First War. 1918, Belleau Wood, Argonne Forest. He'd been 30 years old then, already considered old for the trenches. Mustard gas had scarred his lungs, left them rasping and weak. Every breath was work. Every cold morning reminded him of French trenches and the yellow clouds that rolled across no man's land like judgment. Shrapnel had left its mark across his back, 26 pieces still in there, too deep to remove. They shifted when he moved, set off metal detectors, made sleeping on hard ground an exercise in managing pain. He'd come home broken, spent 20 years putting himself back together in the quiet hills of Pennsylvania, worked a hardware store, married, lost his wife to influenza in 36, buried her on a Tuesday, dug the grave himself because that's what men did. Then the Second War started and he re-enlisted. Some men can't stay away from the fight, even when the fight nearly kills them, especially when they've got nothing left to lose. "Kid," Henderson whispered. His voice was barely a breath, roughened by decades of cigarettes and poison gas. "You see anything?" Silas scanned the tree line 200 yards ahead. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. The forest was a photograph. Still, silent, waiting. A crow sat on a branch, didn't move. That was wrong. Crows moved. Always. Unless something was making them nervous. "Negative," Silas whispered back. "But something's got that crow spooked." 2 o'clock. Pine tree. Henderson glassed it. Good eye. Could be Fisher. Could be a fox. Either way, we wait. Keep looking. Fisher's out there. Fisher. Hauptmann Klaus Fischer. That was the name they had given the German. Nobody knew if it was real. Probably not. But soldiers need names for the things that kill them. It makes the fear more manageable, turns the unknown into the known, the monster into just a man. The thing about Fisher was simple. He never missed. 8 shots, 8 kills, all of them headshots, all of them clean. The kind of shooting that made grown men respect death. The kind that made veterans with 2 years of combat experience move careful, look over their shoulders, flinch at shadows. 3 days ago, Fisher had killed Corporal Danny Walsh. Good kid, 22 years old, engaged to a girl named Sarah back in Pennsylvania. He had been writing her a letter when the bullet found him, sitting against a tree, pencil in hand, paper on his knee. The bullet had entered through his right temple. Exit wound took off the back of his skull. He dropped the pencil. It rolled downhill. Someone picked it up later, kept it. Nobody knew why. The letter was still in his pocket when they buried him, blood-soaked, barely legible. "Dear Sarah," it started, "I miss you more than words can say. The forest here is beautiful in a terrible way. I keep thinking about—" He never got to finish it. 2 days ago, Fisher had killed Private Eugene Foster. Quiet guy, 20 years old, from Iowa. Didn't talk much. Loved baseball. Could recite batting averages from memory. Would bore anyone who'd listen with statistics about the 27 Yankees. The bullet had entered just above his left eye, severed the optic nerve, scrambled the frontal lobe. He probably never knew what hit him. 1 second, alive, thinking about Babe Ruth. Next second, gone. Yesterday, Fisher had killed Sergeant Bill Thompson, 15-year veteran, survived North Africa, survived Sicily, survived Normandy, walked through hell 3 times and came out talking. 42 years old, wife and 2 kids back in Michigan, showed everyone photos, talked about going home, taking his boy fishing, teaching his daughter to drive. Died in a German forest because he looked out from behind a tree at the wrong moment. Just a second, just a glance to check the trail. That's all Fisher needed. 8 men, 8 families that would get telegrams, 8 mothers who would open the door to men in uniform and know, before a word was spoken, that their sons weren't coming home. 8 holes in the unit that could never be filled. And now, it was Silas Garrett's job to stop it. Not because he was good, not because he was experienced, not because he was the best shot in the platoon, because he was disposable. Everyone else had said no when Captain Morrison asked for volunteers. Can't blame them. Fisher was death. Going after him was suicide. Smart men don't volunteer for suicide. But Silas had raised his hand. Not because he was brave. Bravery was for heroes, and Silas Garrett was no hero. He raised his hand because of the way the other men looked at him, the way they always looked at him. Like he was too young, too green, too much of a liability. Like he was a burden they had to carry until something killed him and relieved them of the responsibility. He'd seen it in their eyes since the day he arrived. The calculation, the dismissal. Kid won't last a week. But he had lasted. 5 weeks, longer than 2 of the men who'd looked at him that way. Silas wanted to prove them wrong, even if it killed him, especially if it killed him. Better to die trying than live as the weak link. Better to go down swinging than fade into a statistic. Thornton Hollow, West Virginia, population 412. That was home. That was where Silas Garrett learned everything that mattered. Not from books, not from school. The schoolhouse had closed in '34. Teacher left for Charleston, never came back. Can't blame her. Thornton Hollow was dying even then, from the mines. His father, Ezekiel Garrett, had worked the coal seams for 32 years, started when he was 12, would probably die down there eventually. Most men in Thornton Hollow did. The mine took everyone eventually, some fast, some slow, but it always collected its due. The mine was called Black Thunder, appropriate name. When you were deep in the earth, working by lamplight, the sound of shifting rock above your head sounded exactly like distant thunder. Black. Ominous. Inevitable. A warning of what was coming. Ezekiel had taught Silas the trade when the boy turned 14. Not because he wanted his son in the mines. No father wants that. No man who's breathed coal dust for 3 decades wishes that fate on his child. But the Depression had carved America hollow. Jobs were scarce. Food was scarcer. Men stood in lines for bread. Families split apart looking for work. Children went to bed hungry and woke up hungrier. A man did what he had to do to keep his family fed. Down in the darkness, 300 feet below the surface, Ezekiel taught his son lessons that had nothing to do with coal. How to read the walls by the sound they made when you tapped them. A solid thunk meant good rock. A hollow ring meant fractures, cracks, instability. A ticking sound meant water seepage. Water meant the ceiling could come down any second. How to know when a tunnel was ready to collapse. The silence that came before. The way dust would drift in a certain direction. The feeling in your bones that said, "Get out. Get out now." How to move in spaces where one wrong step could bury you alive. Where the ceiling was so low you crawled. Where the darkness was absolute. where the only light came from the lamp on your helmet, and if that went out, you were blind. Completely. Utterly. Blind in a way surface people never understood. And most important, the mirrors. Black Thunder Mine used mirrors to communicate. Simple, round mirrors mounted on wooden handles, maybe 4 inches across, polished steel, kept clean, essential equipment. When you were deep in a shaft, too far for voices to carry, separated by rock falls or bad air, you used the mirrors to catch lamplight and send signals. 1 flash, all clear. 2 flashes, trouble, need help. 3 flashes, cave in, get out now, run. The mine had taken 17 men since it opened in '09. 17 men crushed under rock or drowned in flooded shafts or suffocated in pockets of bad air. The mirrors had saved dozens more, warning them, calling them back before the mountain claimed them. Ezekiel was the best mirror man in the mine. He could bounce light around corners, through cracks, across distances that seemed impossible, could hit a target 300 yards deep through 2 tunnel bends and a vertical shaft. He understood angles, reflection, the way light behaved when you bent it to your will, geometry, physics, things he'd never learned in school but knew in his bones. "Light's a tool, boy," he would say, his face black with coal dust except for the clean circles around his eyes where the goggles sat. Most men just use it to see. Smart men use it to talk. Wise men use it to survive. Silas learned, practiced, got good at it, started at 14. Clumsy at first. The mirrors were tricky. Angles had to be perfect. Too high, the light missed. Too low, it scattered. The beam had to be tight, focused, deliberate. By 15, he could signal from the deepest shaft to the surface. Could bounce lamplight through 3 tunnels and still hit his target. Could make light do things that seemed like magic to the other miners. But it wasn't magic. It was just geometry, angles, physics, understanding how light moved through space. By the time he was 16, the other miners would ask for him specifically when they went deep. "Young Garrett, best mirror man since his daddy. Keep him on your crew, he'll bring you back." It was just geometry, but in the dark, it felt like power. The mine taught him something else too, something more valuable than any skill: patience. In the tunnels, you couldn't rush, couldn't panic, had to move slow, deliberate, one careful step at a time. Test every foothold, check every handhold, listen to the mountain, respect it, because the mine was always waiting to kill you. It sat patient, eternal. It had been there 1,000,000 years, would be there 1,000,000 more. You were just a visitor, a mayfly, brief and fragile. 1 moment of carelessness, 1 second of hurry, that was all it took. Rush to get out before your shift ended, take a shortcut, miss a warning sign, and the mountain would take you. Every man who died in Black Thunder died because he stopped being patient, stopped listening, stopped respecting the dark. The mine was patient. You had to be more patient. That lesson would save Silas Garrett's life more times than he could count. December 1942. Silas turned 17. 2 weeks later, he lied about his age and enlisted. Not because of patriotism. Well, not entirely. Pearl Harbor had happened a year before. Everyone was signing up, doing their part, fighting for freedom, democracy, the American way. All of that sounded good, felt good, made sense. But that wasn't why Silas enlisted. He enlisted because Thornton Hollow was dying. The mine was closing. Black Thunder had given up its last load of coal worth taking. The seam was played out. What was left wasn't worth the cost of extraction. The company was pulling out, moving operations to Kentucky where the coal was deeper, richer, easier to move to market, leaving Thornton Hollow to rot. 300 jobs gone, 300 families suddenly adrift. Silas's father had looked older every day, grayer, slower. The mine had used him up. 32 years of breathing coal dust. His lungs sounded like gravel in a bucket when he coughed, which was often, every morning, every night. The cough that said, "You're dying, slowly, but dying." Enlistment meant money. Army pay sent home, $30 a month. Not much, but more than nothing. It meant his mother and 2 younger sisters could eat, could stay in the house, could make it through until the war ended, and maybe things got better. So Silas lied, said he was 18. The recruiter knew it was a lie, could see it in the boy's face. The softness that hadn't hardened yet, didn't care. The war needed bodies, young bodies, fresh meat for the grinder. They shipped him to basic training at Camp Wheeler, Georgia. Hot, humid, miserable. Drill sergeants screaming, men breaking, washing out. Silas didn't break. The mine had been harder than any drill sergeant could imagine. You can't scare a man who's been buried alive. Can't intimidate someone who stared into absolute darkness and kept working. Then to sniper school at Camp Perry, Ohio. That was where Sergeant Instructor Dale Hawkins saw something in the quiet kid from West Virginia. Hawkins was 41, career soldier, had been teaching men to shoot since before Silas was born, since the First War, since bullets were measured in calibers instead of millimeters. He had seen thousands of recruits. Most of them were adequate, could hit a target at 200 yards, follow orders, do their job. Some were good, natural marksmen, good eyes, steady hands, competitive drive. A handful were exceptional. Silas Garrett was exceptional, not because of his eyes. Everyone thinks snipers need perfect vision, 20/20 or better, eagle eyes, superhuman perception. They don't. They need patience. Silas had patience. He could lie in the same position for 6 hours without moving, without shifting, without fidgeting, could become part of the landscape, invisible, could slow his breathing to almost nothing, 4 breaths per minute, heart rate down to 40 beats, body temperature dropping, becoming cold, still, dead to the world above ground, could wait for the exact right moment and not rush it, not take the shot that was almost right, only the shot that was perfect. Most boys, Hawkins said once, watching Silas during a training exercise, they get antsy, start thinking too much, psych themselves out, worry about missing, worry about the target moving, worry about wind, about drop, about a million things. Not you, Garrett, you just wait. Like you got all the time in the world, like you're doing something you've done 1,000 times before. Silas didn't tell him about the mine, about lying in tight spaces waiting for the all-clear signal, about learning to be still because movement in the dark could kill you, could bring down the ceiling, could alert something bad to your presence, about the patience required to survive 300 feet underground where one mistake meant burial. He just nodded and kept shooting. By the time he finished sniper school, Silas Garrett could put a bullet through a playing card at 400 yards, could judge wind speed by watching grass move, could estimate distance by the size of a man's head in the scope, could calculate drop and drift in his head faster than most men could work a slide rule. The instructors were impressed, wrote glowing reports, recommended him for advanced training. Silas wasn't impressed. Hitting paper targets was easy. Paper didn't shoot back. Paper didn't have a mother, a wife, children. Paper didn't bleed. October 1944. Silas arrived in Europe, Southampton, England. Raining, always raining. They assigned him to the 28th Infantry Division, Company F, 2nd Platoon, the Bloody Bucket. The 28th had been in combat since Normandy, landed on Omaha Beach in July, fought through the hedgerows, paid in blood for every 100 yards. By the time Silas joined them, they were tired, used up, running on fumes and stubbornness and the knowledge that the only way home was through Germany. The new guys called them the Bloody Bucket because of the division patch, a red keystone, Pennsylvania's symbol, looked like a bucket, covered in blood more often than not. Captain James Morrison commanded the company, 32 years old, Philadelphia, former schoolteacher, taught history at a boys' school, signed up the day after Pearl Harbor, left a good job, a wife, a future. Joined because he couldn't teach kids about honor and duty and sacrifice if he wasn't willing to do those things himself. Morrison was smart, careful, the kind of officer who thought before he sent men to die, who spent nights calculating odds, looking for ways to accomplish the mission with minimum casualties. The men respected him for it, would follow him into hell if he asked, not because he was brave. Lots of officers were brave and stupid, because he was careful. And in war, careful officers kept more men alive. When Silas reported for duty, Morrison looked him up and down. Saw a kid. 17 years old trying to look 18. Smooth-faced, thin, wide-eyed. "How old are you, Garrett?" 18, sir." Morrison's eyes said he knew it was a lie. His mouth said nothing. He'd stopped caring about lies. In war, everyone lied. "I'm fine. It doesn't hurt. I can keep going. We'll make it home." Lies kept you sane. "You know how to shoot that rifle?" "Yes, sir." "Good. We need snipers. Lost 2 last month. Stay alive long enough to replace them." That was the whole speech. Welcome to the war. No grand words, no inspiration, no rally cry. Just try not to die. Silas's spotter was Sergeant Roy Henderson. When they first met, Henderson was cleaning his rifle, sitting on an ammunition crate, methodical, practiced. The movements of a man who had done this 10,000 times, who could field strip a rifle blindfolded, who knew every part, every spring, every pin. He looked up, studied Silas with eyes that had seen Belleau Wood and the Argonne, eyes that had watched friends die in trenches, that had seen mustard gas roll across no man's land like fog. "You the new sniper?" "Yes, Sergeant." "How old are you really?" Direct. No bullshit. Silas made a decision. Honesty. 17, Sergeant." Henderson nodded slowly. "At least you're honest. That's something." He went back to cleaning his rifle. "Listen, kid. Sniping ain't about shooting. Any idiot can pull a trigger. Hell, most idiots do. That's why we got so many casualties. It's about not being seen, about being invisible, about being so still, so patient, so careful that the enemy forgets you exist. And then you remind them. You understand?" "Yes, Sergeant." "No, you don't, but you will." Henderson was right. Silas learned fast. He learned that sniping was 90% waiting and 10% shooting. 90% being cold, wet, hungry, uncomfortable, bored out of your mind. 10%, one moment of absolute focus, one breath, one trigger pull, then back to 90% waiting. He learned that the best position wasn't the one with the best view, it was the one nobody expected, the one that seemed too far, too exposed, too stupid. Because everyone looks for the obvious, the smart hiding spot, the tactical position. Nobody looks for the stupid one. He learned that staying alive meant never, ever doing the same thing twice, never shooting from the same position, never taking the same route, never establishing a pattern. Patterns got you killed. And he learned that killing a man through a scope was different than he thought it would be. In training, they shot at targets, silhouettes, paper circles, bullseyes. In combat, you saw faces. The first man Silas killed was a German machine gunner, October 29th. Rain coming down in sheets, cold rain, the kind that got through everything. The German was maybe 25, blonde hair plastered to his head, smoking a cigarette, trying to keep it dry under his helmet, looking miserable. Just a guy, just a soldier doing his job, probably had a girl back home, probably wanted to go home. Silas put the cross on his chest, exhaled, squeezed. The rifle bucked. The German fell, dropped the cigarette, clutched at his chest, fell backward into the mud. Gone. Henderson clapped him on the shoulder. "Good shot, kid." Silas nodded, didn't speak, couldn't speak. Something in his throat, something in his chest. That night, he tried to remember the German's face. Couldn't. It was already fading. Blonde hair. That's all he could remember. Just blonde hair. By the 3rd kill, he stopped trying to remember. By the 10th kill, he stopped feeling anything at all. That was how you survived. You turned off the part of you that felt, locked it away, put it in a box, buried it deep, became a machine that breathed and shot and moved. Feelings were for later, if there was a later. In combat, you couldn't afford feelings, couldn't afford to think about mothers, wives, children, couldn't afford to remember they were human, just targets, silhouettes, jobs to complete, pull trigger, target falls, move to next position, repeat. The machine worked. The machine survived. The man inside could deal with it later. November 15th, 1944. The 28th entered the Hurtgen forest. Nobody told them it would be hell. Nobody had to. The Hurtgen was 50 square miles of dense, evergreen forest on the German-Belgian border. Trees so thick you couldn't see 30 yards. Couldn't call in air support because you couldn't mark targets. Couldn't use tanks because the ground was too broken. Ground so uneven you couldn't walk straight. Couldn't establish lines. Couldn't dig proper foxholes because the roots were too thick. Cold so deep it got inside your bones and stayed there. The kind of cold that made your fingers stop working, made weapons jam, made men shake so hard they couldn't aim. And the Germans were dug in. Pillboxes, concrete bunkers, minefields, S-mines they called bouncing Bettys that jumped up to waist height before exploding, cut men in half. Machine gun nests. Artillery zeroed on every trail, every clearing, every route of advance. The forest was a killing ground. The Germans had months to prepare. They knew every sightline, every approach, every place an attacker would be vulnerable. The 28th's job was to advance 5 miles and take a town called Schmidt. Simple on paper. Draw a line, walk that direction, take the objective. Impossible in practice. The first day, they advanced 200 yards, cost them 40 men. 40 men for 200 yards, 2 football fields. The second day, 100 yards, cost them 30. By the third day, nobody was counting yards anymore. They were counting bodies, counting who was left, counting rounds, counting hours until relief. And that was when Fisher showed up. November 16th, morning, cold enough to see breath, cold enough that the ground crunched when you walked. Private Eugene Foster was on watch, sitting behind a log, eating cold beans from a can, thinking about baseball, about going home, about seeing his mother. The bullet came from nowhere, entered above his left eye, killed him instantly. The can of beans fell, spilled in the dirt. Nobody heard the shot. The forest swallowed sound, absorbed it like a sponge. Henderson examined the body, checked the angle, did the math, looked at the entry wound, the trajectory, the way Foster had fallen. 400 yards, he said quietly. Maybe more. Uphill. Through trees. Captain Morrison looked grim. German sniper? Has to be. Nobody gets that shot by accident. Find him. Henderson tried. Took Corporal Walsh, best tracker in the company, man who'd hunted deer in Pennsylvania since he was 8 years old. They searched for 3 hours, found nothing. No brass, no footprints, no disturbed ground, no sign anyone had been there at all. The German was a ghost. November 17th, afternoon. Corporal Danny Walsh was writing a letter home. Sitting against a tree, pen in hand, thinking about Sarah, about the wedding they'd have when he got back. The bullet took him in the throat, severed the carotid. He bled out in 90 seconds, grabbed at his neck, eyes wide, confused, drowning in his own blood. Died holding the letter. Dear Sarah, it started. I miss you more than words can say. He never got to finish it. That night, Morrison called a meeting, officers and senior NCOs only, in a bunker, by candlelight. We have a problem, he said. German sniper, 2 kills, both clean, both from distance, both invisible. We need to stop him. Lieutenant Parker spoke up, young, eager, still believed in frontal assaults and American superiority. Send out a team, flush him out. Henderson shook his head. Won't work. This guy's too good. Knows we're looking. He'll just wait. Pick off whoever we send. We'll lose 4 men trying to get one. So what do? We need a better sniper. Everyone looked at Henderson. I'm too old, he said. Flat. Honest. Reflexes aren't what they were. Eyes neither. Got cataracts starting. Can't see shit in low light anymore. I can spot, but I can't take this guy. Morrison scanned the tent. Who else we got? Silence. The 28th had started with 6 snipers. 4 were dead. 1 was in the hospital with trench foot, feet rotted, useless. That left Henderson and Silas Garrett. Morrison's eyes found him, standing in the corner, quiet, always quiet. Garrett, you think you can do this? Every eye in the tent turned to him. Silas felt the weight of their stares, most of them doubtful. some of them pitying. The kid, 17 years old, barely shaves, probably still a virgin. "I can try, sir." "Trying gets you killed," Morrison said. "Can you do it or not?" Silas thought about the mine, about the darkness, about waiting for the light, about patience, about his father's voice. Wise men use light to survive. "Yes, sir." Henderson studied him. "You understand what you're signing up for? This ain't like shooting some kid manning a machine gun. This is a professional. He's killed more men than you've shot at." "I understand, Sergeant," Morrison nodded. "All right, Garrett, Fisher is yours. Henderson, you spot for him." "Sir," Lieutenant Parker interrupted, "with respect, Garrett's our youngest sniper, least experienced. Maybe we should—" "Should what?" Morrison cut him off. "Wait for someone better. We don't have anyone better. Everyone else said no when I asked for volunteers." He looked around the tent. "Anyone else want to raise their hand?" Nobody moved. Dead silence. "That's what I thought." Morrison turned back to Silas. "You start tomorrow morning. 0600. Henderson will brief you." "Yes, sir." The meeting broke up. Silas walked out into the cold November night, breath fogging, hands shaking. Not from fear. Well, not entirely from fear. From the realization of what he had just agreed to. Hunt a ghost who had killed 8 men and never been seen. Find a phantom in 50 square miles of forest. Kill him before he killed you. Simple. Henderson found him an hour later, sitting alone, cleaning his rifle for the 3rd time. The weapon was already spotless, but Silas kept cleaning, kept his hands busy, kept his mind from thinking about tomorrow. "You nervous, kid?" "No, Sergeant." "Liar." Silas smiled, despite himself. "Yes, Sergeant." Henderson sat down beside him, pulled out a cigarette, lit it, didn't offer one to Silas. The kid didn't smoke. They sat in silence, Henderson smoking, Silas cleaning. "Let me tell you something about Fisher," Henderson said finally. "He's good, maybe the best I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot. Saw a British sniper in the First War, guy named Francis Pega Magabo, Canadian Indian, had 278 kills, never saw anything like it. Fisher's that good? Maybe, different style, but same level. But here's the thing about being the best. Makes you confident, and confidence makes patterns." "Patterns?" "Yeah, patterns. Fisher shoots from distance, always uphill, always through cover, always one shot. Then he's gone. That's a pattern. So how do we use it?" Henderson took a long drag, exhaled slowly. "That's what we got to figure out. Find his pattern. Break it. Make him do something he doesn't expect to do. Force him into a mistake. And then? Then we kill him before he kills us." Silas nodded slowly, kept cleaning his rifle, thinking. Henderson stood up. "Get some sleep, kid. Long day tomorrow." "Sergeant?" "Yeah?" "Why'd you volunteer to spot for me? Could have said no like everyone else." Henderson looked at him, really looked at him, seeing something beyond the young face and nervous hands, seeing something familiar. "Because I was you once," he said quietly. "Long time ago. 30 years old. First war. Thought I had something to prove." "And did you?" "Yeah. I proved war don't care how brave you are, how smart you are, how much you want to live, how good your reasons are for fighting." He paused. "But I also proved something else." "What's that?" "That sometimes the underdog wins. Not often, but sometimes. And when they do, it matters." Henderson dropped his cigarette, crushed it under his boot. "You got something, kid. Don't know what it is yet, but it's there. I can see it. Saw it the first time you shot. The patience, the stillness. Like you've done this before." He walked away into the darkness. Silas sat alone in the cold, thinking about mirrors, about light bouncing through darkness, about the way his father could make illumination bend around corners and through cracks, about how reflection could be a weapon if you knew how to use it. An idea was forming, fragile, uncertain, probably stupid, but there. He would need to test it, carefully, quietly, because if it worked, it could change everything. And if it didn't work, he would be dead by tomorrow night. Either way, at least he would know. Silas Garrett lay down in his foxhole, pulled his coat tight, closed his eyes. Sleep didn't come easy. The forest made noises, branches creaking, wind through needles, somewhere an animal moving, and underneath it all, the sound of 800 men breathing, waiting, knowing that tomorrow some of them would die. But eventually, sleep came, and with it, dreams of light and shadow, of mirrors in the dark, of his father's voice echoing up from 300 feet below ground. Light's a tool, boy. Wise men use it to survive. Tomorrow, Silas would find out if he was wise enough. Tomorrow, the hunt would begin. November 18th, 05:30. Silas woke before dawn, not from an alarm, from habit. The mine had trained him to wake in darkness, had trained his body to know when night ended, even when eyes couldn't tell the difference. The forest was still, the kind of still that comes before violence, before the world wakes up and remembers it's at war. Henderson was already up, brewing coffee over a small fire, against regulations, but in the Hurtgen, regulations were suggestions. Survival was law. The fire was tiny, smokeless, made with dry wood, the kind that doesn't spark, doesn't give away position. Coffee? Henderson held out a tin cup. Silas took it, burned his tongue, didn't care. The heat felt good, spreading through his chest, waking him up. Sleep? Some. Nightmares? Always. Henderson nodded. Everyone had nightmares. The ones who said they didn't were liars, or psychopaths. Either way, not people you wanted to trust. They sat in silence, drinking bad coffee, watching the sky turn from black to grey, the forest emerging from shadow, trees becoming visible, shapes taking form. Trees like prison bars, sky like a lid, the world a cage. "Tell me your plan," Henderson said finally. Silas had been thinking about it all night. The idea that had come to him, fragile, maybe stupid, probably would get him killed, but maybe not. "Mirrors," he said. Henderson looked at him. "Mirrors. Yes, Sergeant. You want to explain that?" Silas set down his coffee, pulled out a small object from his coat pocket, a compact mirror, the kind women carried in their purses, round, maybe 3 inches across, cracked on one side but still reflective. Good enough. "Found this in a bombed house 2 days ago," Silas said. "Thought it might be useful." Henderson stared at it. "For what? Checking your hair before you die? For making Fisher think we're somewhere we're not?" Henderson frowned, thinking. "I'm listening." Silas held up the mirror, caught a sliver of early light, grey light. Not much, but enough. Sent it bouncing across the foxhole, off a tree, back toward them. Back home, in the mines, we used mirrors to signal, bounce light around corners, send messages when voices wouldn't carry, when the darkness was too thick, when bad air made yelling dangerous. "I know how mirrors work, kid. But did you know they can look exactly like scope glint?" Henderson went very still. Silas could see the wheels turning in the old man's head, making connections, seeing possibilities. "Think about it," Silas continued. "Fisher's up there somewhere, watching, waiting for us to show ourselves, waiting to see that little flash of light when our scope catches the sun. So what if we give him scope glints that aren't scopes?" Understanding dawned in Henderson's eyes. "Decoys." "Exactly. We put mirrors in the trees, angle them to catch light, make them look like sniper positions. Fisher sees the glint, takes the shot, reveals his position. And then we nail him. That's the idea." Henderson was quiet for a long moment, thinking it through, looking for holes in the logic, testing the plan against his 38 years of combat experience. "It could work," he said slowly, "but you'll need more than one mirror. Fisher's smart. He'll get suspicious if we only show one position." "I know. I'm going to need to scrounge, find every reflective surface in this forest. And you'll need to place them careful. Wrong angle, they won't catch light. Wrong height, Fisher won't buy it. Too obvious, he'll know it's fake. Yes, Sergeant? Henderson studied him, really looked at him, like he was seeing Silas for the first time. Your daddy teach you this? The mirror part, the killing part I'm making up as I go. A smile cracked Henderson's weathered face, first one Silas had seen in days. All right, kid, let's try it. But if this gets us killed, I'm going to be pissed. Understood, Sergeant. They finished their coffee as dawn broke over the Hurtgen forest. Grey light, no warmth. The sun trying to break through clouds and failing. The kind of light that shows everything and hides everything at the same time. Perfect for hunting. It took Silas 3 hours to find what he needed. The Hurtgen was littered with debris, evidence of battle, evidence of life interrupted. Bombed houses, abandoned vehicles, personal effects from soldiers who no longer needed them, who would never need anything again. He found 2 more compact mirrors from a burned-out farmhouse, one pink, one blue, women's mirrors. The farmhouse had been someone's home, pictures still on the walls, burned now, curled, unrecognizable. A piece of polished metal from a German mess kit, scratched but serviceable, still caught light. 3 shards of broken window glass, dangerous, sharp, but reflective. A chrome cigarette case, American, initials engraved, R.J.M. Robert? Richard? Raymond? Dead now. Didn't matter. A bent spoon polished mirror bright, probably from the same mess kit. Not much, but enough. Henderson helped him scout positions. They moved slow, careful, always watching for Fisher, for movement, for the glint that wasn't theirs. The German was out there, somewhere, patient as stone, watching them the way they were watching for him. They found 6 good spots, trees with clear sight lines to the American positions, high enough to seem like sniper nests, 20 to 30 feet up, covered enough to look deliberate, not so covered they looked fake. Silas climbed each tree, moving slow, careful, making no noise, placed each mirror, wedged them in branches, tied them with cord, angled them to catch morning sun when it came. It was delicate work. One wrong angle and the light wouldn't reflect right, would scatter, would look wrong, too obvious, and Fisher would know it was fake. But Silas had spent 5 years in the mines making light bend to his will. His hands remembered the geometry, remembered the angles, the way light traveled, the way it bounced. This was the same, just higher stakes. By 0900, all 6 mirrors were in place. From the ground, they were invisible, just part of the forest, part of the chaos. From Fisher's position, wherever that was, they would look exactly like scope glints. Careless Americans who didn't know better, who let their scopes catch light. Easy targets. Henderson surveyed the work from below, glassing each position, checking angles. Looks good, kid, real good. Can't tell the difference from here. Now we wait. Now we wait. They moved to a position 200 yards back, behind a fallen log. Good cover, thick, solid, would stop rifle rounds. Clear view of the mirror positions. Could see all 6 from here. And they settled in to do what snipers do best. Wait. The forest was never quiet. That was the thing about the Hurtgen. It made noise. Constant, unsettling. Wind through dead branches. Distant artillery. Somewhere a crow calling. The creak of trees settling under their own weight. The drip of melting frost. And underneath it all, the sound of men breathing. Waiting. Preparing to kill or be killed. Silas lay prone, eye to his scope, scanning, always scanning, left to right, slow, methodical. Henderson beside him, binoculars up, watching the tree line, watching for movement, for anything out of place. 10 o'clock came and went. Nothing. 11 o'clock. Nothing. The sun broke through clouds, brief, just minutes, but enough. The mirrors caught it, flashed, just for a second, then clouds again, grey. Noon. Still nothing. Maybe he's not watching today, Silas whispered. He's watching. Fisher's always watching. That's what makes him good. How do you know? Because that's what I'd do. If I was him, I'd watch. Every day, all day, looking for mistakes, waiting for someone to get careless. 1 o'clock. The sun shifted, angled lower, broke through clouds again, and one of the mirrors caught it perfectly. A brilliant flash. Sharp, unmistakable, like a signal flare. The southeast mirror, 30 feet up in a pine tree. There, Henderson breathed. Southeast mirror, lit up like a Christmas tree. I see it. They waited. Somewhere in the forest, Fisher was seeing it too, making calculations, estimating distance, checking wind, considering whether to take the shot, considering whether it was real, whether it was a trap. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Come on, Silas whispered. Take the bait. Nothing. 15 minutes. He's not buying it, Henderson said. Too smart. Probably thinks it's a trap. Maybe we need to make it more convincing. How? Silas thought, ran through options, dismissed most of them. We need movement. A scope glint doesn't just sit there. It shifts, moves a little, like someone's adjusting, getting comfortable. You want to go back up that tree and adjust the mirror? No, but I can make it look like someone's up there. Henderson understood immediately. Muzzle flash. Exactly. Silas aimed at a tree 50 yards northeast, nowhere near the mirror positions, just a random spot, a tree that meant nothing. Squeezed the trigger. Crack. The shot echoed through the forest, rolled through trees, birds scattered, wings beating, crows cawing, and 5 seconds later, a bullet smashed into the tree where the southeast mirror was placed. Thwack! The sound of impact. Wood splintering. The mirror shattering. Unmistakable. Fisher had taken the bait. Got him, Henderson hissed. Northeast, 300 yards, behind the thick spruce. Silas swung his rifle. Found the tree Henderson indicated. Big spruce, thick branches, good cover. Searched for any sign of movement. Nothing. But the shot had come from there. Had to have. Angle was right. Distance was right. I don't see him, Sergeant. He's there. Trust me. Wait. Silas trusted him. He aimed at the base of the spruce. Waited. Controlled his breathing. Slowed his heart rate. Became still. 1 minute. 2. And then the slightest movement. Just a shadow shifting. Could have been wind. Could have been imagination. Could have been Fisher. Silas fired. The bullet tore through branches, missed by inches, hit the tree trunk, sprayed bark. But the shadow moved again. Fast, retreating, running. Wounded? Silas asked. Negative. Just spooked. But we got closer than anyone else has. Made him move. Made him think. Henderson was grinning. Actually grinning. Your daddy's trick works, kid. It actually works. Silas didn't smile. He was already thinking ahead. Fisher knew now. Knew the mirror trick. Knew someone was playing games. Which meant Fisher would adapt. Which meant the war was about to get complicated. Day 1. Total, 2 kills. That afternoon, Fisher sent a probe. Testing. Looking for the Americans who'd almost killed him. 4 German soldiers, moving careful through the trees, weapons ready, eyes scanning, hunting. Silas spotted them at 300 yards, saw movement, saw the distinctive shape of German helmets. 4 targets, he whispered to Henderson. Moving in formation, 280 yards, closing. Take the leader, I'll call adjustments. Silas found the German sergeant, older guy, maybe 35, experienced, moving smart, using cover, checking corners, professional, exhaled, squeezed, crack. The sergeant dropped, hit the ground hard, didn't move. The other 3 scattered, looking for cover, shouting in German. Silas worked the bolt, smooth, automatic. Thousands of repetitions in training, making the movement effortless. Found another target. German rifleman, young, panicking, running for a tree, fired. Second kill. The rifleman fell, tumbled, rolled down a small incline, stopped against a log. The remaining 2 fled, running, abandoning their dead. Smart. Henderson lowered his binoculars. 2 for 2. Clean shots. That's how it's done. Silas felt nothing. The machine was fully engaged now. Feelings locked away, buried deep. Just targets. Just jobs to complete. Pull trigger. Target falls. Move to next position. They relocated immediately. Never stay where you shoot. First rule. Most important rule. Moved 300 yards west. Found new cover. Settled in. Watched their old position. 30 minutes later, German artillery hammered it. Shells screaming in. Trees exploding. Earth fountaining up. If they'd stayed, they'd be dead. That night, back at the company CP, Morrison pulled Silas aside. His face was serious, grave. "Heard you got 2 today. Good work." "Thank you, sir." "Fisher?" "Not yet, sir, but we're close." Made him move. Made him react. Morrison nodded. "Keep at it. Every day he's not killing our men is a win." "Yes, sir." Morrison hesitated, like he wanted to say something else, something difficult.
"Sir?"
"Garrett, we got a problem." Silas's stomach dropped. "What kind of problem, sir?" "2 of our boys tried your mirror trick today, Private Wade Collins and Corporal Eugene Murphy." The world tilted. "And?" Morrison's jaw tightened. "Collins took a round through the shoulder. He'll live. Medics patched him up. But Murphy's dead." "Dead?" The word came out strangled. "Set up his mirror wrong. Too obvious. German sniper saw through it. Waited till Murphy moved to adjust it. Headshot." The words hit Silas like bullets. Murphy. Good kid. 23. From Ohio. Talked about his kid sister all the time. Rachel. 9 years old. He was saving money to buy her a bicycle for Christmas. Dead because he tried to copy something Silas had done. Dead because Silas had been too clever. "Sir, maybe I should stop." "No." Morrison's voice was firm, hard. "Your technique works, Garrett. Proved it today. But only if done right. And most men can't do it right. Don't have the patience, the understanding. Murphy was a good soldier, but he wasn't you." He looked Silas in the eye. "I'm putting out word. Nobody uses mirrors unless you personally train them, and even then, only if they got the patience for it. The stillness, understood?" "Yes, sir." But the damage was done. Murphy's death hung on Silas like a stone, like weight pressing down, making it hard to breathe. Henderson found him later, sitting alone in a foxhole, staring at nothing. "Not your fault, kid." "He died using my technique." "He died because he did it wrong. That's on him, not you." "I should have kept it secret, should have kept my mouth shut." "Wouldn't have mattered. Word always gets out. Men talk, men watch. Can't stop it." Henderson sat down beside him, offered him a cigarette. This time, Silas took it. They smoked in silence. "Listen," Henderson said finally. "The mirror trick works. You proved that. Fisher proved that by shooting at it. But it ain't for everybody. Some men got the patience for it. Most don't. Murphy didn't. He was a good man. Yeah, he was. But good don't mean patient. Don't mean careful." Henderson took a drag. "War's full of good men who died doing things they weren't ready for." "Doesn't make it easier." "No, it doesn't. But you can't protect everyone. Can't save everyone. All you can do is your job. And hope it matters." Silas nodded slowly, smoked his cigarette down to nothing. Murphy's face kept appearing in his mind, smiling, talking about his sister, about the bicycle, about Christmas. Not smiling anymore. November 19th, day 2. Silas woke to find Henderson already gone. A note left on his rifle. "Scouting, back by 07. Stay put." Silas stayed put, cleaned his rifle. Again. It didn't need cleaning, but his hands needed something to do. Henderson returned at 06:58, moving fast, face grim. "We got problems." "What kind?" "Found 3 of your mirrors. Someone shot them to pieces during the night." Silas felt his stomach drop. "Fisher?" "Who else? He found them, figured out the trick. Now he's clearing them, making sure we can't use them again." "So it's over?" "Not necessarily." Henderson sat down, pulled out his canteen, took a long drink, wiped his mouth. "Fisher didn't destroy all the mirrors. Just 3. which means he doesn't know where the others are. Or he's leaving them as bait, using them to draw us out. Maybe. But here's the thing, kid. Henderson reached into his coat, pulled out a small round object. Fisher's playing the same game we are now. Another compact mirror. Found this hanging in a tree 400 yards east. Same kind of setup you made, angled to catch light. Professional work. Silas stared at it. He's trying to lure us out. That's my read. We use mirrors to fake scope positions. He uses mirrors to fake scope positions. Now we're both hunting ghosts. It was almost funny. Almost. Two snipers. Same trick, same forest. Same deadly game. Mirror against mirror. Hunter against hunter. So what do we do? Henderson smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who'd been doing this too long and enjoyed the challenge despite himself. We get creative. They spent the morning setting new traps, more elaborate, more subtle. Real scopes mixed with fake mirrors, positioned to overlap fields of fire, creating confusion. The idea was simple. Create so many positions that Fisher couldn't tell what was real and what was reflection. Make him guess, make him hesitate, and in combat, hesitation kills. By noon, they had 12 positions, 6 real, 6 fake. From Fisher's perspective, it would look like the Americans had flooded the area with snipers, like they'd brought in reinforcements. He would have to choose. Risk a shot and maybe hit a real target, or hold fire and let opportunities pass. Either way, he would make a mistake eventually. Everyone makes mistakes, even the best. You just had to be there when it happened. 1400 hours. The sun broke through clouds for the first time in days. Actual sun. Bright. Warm. Shafts of light cutting through trees like searchlights. Perfect conditions for mirror work. Every reflective surface in the forest lit up. Real scopes and fake mirrors both. A constellation of glints. Silas watched through his scope. Slow panning. Searching for anything out of place. Any glint that moved wrong, that looked wrong. And then he saw it. A flash. Brief. Northwest. Different from the others. Too high for a ground position. Too exposed for a safe nest. No experienced sniper would set up there. But unmistakably, a scope glint. Northwest, Silas whispered. Pine tree. Maybe 350 yards. High up. Henderson glassed it. I see it. Could be real. Could be one of his mirrors. Only one way to find out. Silas aimed. Controlled breathing. Slowed his heart rate. Let everything else fall away. Just the target. Just the shot. Exhaled. Squeezed. Crack. The bullet flew true, and a body fell from the tree. Not Fisher. Someone else. A German soldier. Young. Maybe Silas's age. 17, 18. He hit the ground hard. 30 feet. Bones breaking on impact. Didn't move. Henderson was already scanning. That was Fisher's spotter, which means Fisher's close. Real close. How close? Close enough to... The forest exploded. Rifle fire from 3 directions. Not random spray. Controlled. Precise. Aimed. Fisher had brought reinforcements. Bullets chewed into the log they hid behind. Splinters flying. The air filled with the scream of lead on wood. Wood chips in Silas's face, in his hair. Dust everywhere. "Move!" Henderson shouted. They rolled left, found a depression, pressed themselves flat. More shots, closer now. Bullets hitting where they'd been 2 seconds ago. Silas counted muzzle flashes. 4 shooters, maybe 5. Hard to tell in the chaos. They're trying to pin us, Henderson said. Push us into a kill zone. Standard tactics. Another volley. Bark exploded above their heads. A branch fell. Nearly hit Henderson. Silas made a decision. He pulled out the compact mirror. The original one. The one from the bombed house. The pink one. Held it up. Caught sunlight. Sent it flashing toward the nearest German position. Bright. Deliberate. Obvious. The firing stopped. For just a second. Confusion. Was that a scope? A mirror? A real target? Another trap? In that second of hesitation, Silas moved, rolled right, found new cover, brought his rifle up, spotted a German leaning out, trying to see where the flash came from. Helmet visible, shoulder exposed. Mistake. Silas fired. The German went down. Kill number 4. The firing resumed. Angrier, less controlled. Fear makes you sloppy. Silas and Henderson leapfrogged back, one covering while the other moved. Standard infantry tactics. But every time Silas moved, he used the mirror. Flash, move, flash, move, creating confusion, multiple positions, impossible to track. The Germans couldn't tell how many Americans they were fighting. 1, 2, a whole squad, a platoon. Fear makes you see phantoms, makes you imagine things that aren't there. Over the next 20 minutes, Silas dropped 3 more targets. Germans who got careless, who exposed themselves, who tried to flank and walked into his sight line. Day 2. Total, 5 kills. Running total, 7. By 1600 hours, the Germans pulled back. Silas and Henderson waited another hour, making sure it wasn't a trick, making sure they weren't walking into an ambush. When they finally moved forward to check, they found 4 German bodies. The young spotter, 3 riflemen, all dead. All clean shots, all necessary. Silas felt nothing. The machine was working perfectly now. No emotion, no hesitation, just function. Henderson picked up the spotter's rifle. Nice piece, Mauser K98, good scope, better than standard issue, and tucked in the spotter's coat pocket, a small notebook. Henderson flipped through it, mostly German, but some parts in English, annotations, notes about wind, elevation, specific locations, and on the last page, a name written in careful script. Hauptmann Klaus Fischer, confirmed 31 kills. Current theatre, Hurtgen Forest. Jesus, Henderson breathed, 31 kills. He's even better than we thought. Silas looked at the name, the number, 31 men, 31 families destroyed, 31 mothers who'd gotten telegrams, and somewhere in this forest, Fisher was planning to make it 32. That night, Morrison pulled Silas aside again. They were in a bunker, candlelight, shadows dancing on walls. Morrison looked tired, older than 32, the weight of command showing. 7 kills in 2 days, hell of a start. Thank you, sir. Fisher still out there? Yes, sir. But we're wearing him down, made him move, made him react, killed his spotter. Morrison nodded. Good. Keep the pressure on. He paused. How are you holding up? After Murphy? Silas thought about lying, thought about saying, Fine, sir. No problem, sir. Decided on truth. Not great, sir. Keep seeing his face. That's normal. Means you're human. Morrison pulled out a cigarette, offered one to Silas. Silas took it. They smoked. Murphy's death wasn't your fault, Morrison said. But it's a reminder. Innovation's dangerous, even when it works. Yes, sir. You know what that means? Sir? Means you got to keep going, keep innovating. Because if you stop, Murphy died for nothing. But if you keep going, if you refine the technique, train the right people, maybe you save more lives than you cost. That's the calculus of war. Sometimes you lose to win. Silas nodded, understanding but not liking it. Get some rest, Garrett. Tomorrow's another day. November 20th. Day 3. The weather turned. Rain. Cold. Relentless. The kind that got through everything. The forest became a swamp. Every step sucked at boots. Mud everywhere. Visibility down to 50 yards. Bad weather for sniping. Good weather for close work. Silas and Henderson moved deeper into the forest, hunting, taking the fight to Fisher instead of waiting for him to come to them. They had a rough idea where Fisher was operating, a square mile of dense timber northeast of the American lines. Somewhere in that grid, the German was waiting. The mirrors wouldn't work in rain. No sun, no glints. This would be pure fieldcraft, hunter versus hunter, skill against skill. They found Fisher's hide around noon, recently used, maybe this morning. Flattened ground, moss disturbed, shell casings, 4 of them, 7.92 millimeters Mauser, Fisher's caliber. Henderson picked one up, still slightly warm. He was here, 2 hours ago, maybe less. Which direction did he go? Henderson studied the ground, reading it like a book, seeing what others missed. Broken moss, displaced leaves, a pebble turned over showing wet side up. North, moving toward the ridge, fast, like he knew we were coming. He's running? Or leading us into a trap? They followed. The trail was faint, barely visible, but there. A broken twig here, bent grass there, disturbed earth where a boot had pressed. The kind of sign only an expert would leave, and only an expert would see. Fisher was good, but Silas had learned tracking in Appalachian hills where game was scarce, and one missed sign meant your family went hungry. He could read forest like other men read newspapers. They followed for an hour, rain coming down harder, soaking through everything. Cold, miserable. The trail led uphill, toward a rocky outcrop overlooking a ravine. Perfect sniper position, commanding view, multiple escape routes. Henderson signaled. Slow, careful. They approached like ghosts. 50 yards from the outcrop, Silas stopped. Something was wrong. The trail was too obvious now, too easy to follow, too many signs. Fisher was too good to be this sloppy. "Sergeant," he whispered, "this is a trap." Henderson saw it too, nodded. "Son of a bitch is baiting us." They froze. Somewhere ahead, Fisher was waiting, watching, finger on trigger, scope on the trail. If they advanced, they died. If they retreated, Fisher would relocate, start over, kill more men. Stalemate. And then Silas saw it. A flash of movement. 300 yards left, behind a fallen log. Not Fisher, someone else. Another German, covering Fisher's flank, watching the approach. "Secondary shooter," Silas breathed. 300 yards, 10 o'clock. Henderson glassed it. "Got him. You take him. I'll watch for Fisher." Silas settled in, found the target. Young guy, maybe 20, nervous, kept looking around, checking, waiting for orders. Amateur, not like Fisher. Silas put the crosshairs on center mass. Exhaled. Crack. The German fell. And all hell broke loose. Firing erupted from multiple positions. Fisher hadn't brought one backup. He brought a whole team. 6 shooters, maybe 7, hidden, waiting. Ambush. Silas and Henderson were caught in a crossfire. Exactly what Fisher wanted. Bullets everywhere, the air screaming, trees exploding. They dove into a shell crater, pressed themselves into mud, into water, into anything that provided cover. "Count!" Henderson shouted over the gunfire. 6 shooters, maybe 7, can't tell. For the next 40 minutes it was chaos, pure survival. Silas used every trick he knew, mirror flashes to draw fire, quick shots, immediate displacement, never staying in one place. Henderson called targets, covering fire, threw grenades, anything to create confusion. They worked as one unit, perfectly synchronized, like they'd been doing this together for years instead of days. One would move, the other would cover, then switch. Leapfrog, displace, survive. Silas dropped 6 more Germans. Day 3. Total, 7 kills. Running total, 14. Clean shots, necessary shots, men who were trying to kill him. By the time the firing stopped, Silas had used most of his ammunition. Henderson was down to his last magazine. The survivors fled, running, abandoning their dead, including Fisher. Silas saw him, just a glimpse, tall figure, moving fast through trees, professional, controlled even in retreat. Gone before Silas could line up a shot. But he'd seen him. Hauptmann Klaus Fischer was real. Not a ghost, not a legend, just a man. And men could die. November 21st, Day 4. Dawn came grey and cold. Silas and Henderson had barely slept, too keyed up, too aware that Fisher was out there, hurt, angry, dangerous. They'd killed 14 of his men in 3 days, 8 soldiers who wouldn't go home, 8 families getting telegrams. Fisher would want revenge. They moved to a new position at first light, a burned-out bunker overlooking a crossroads. Good field of fire, multiple exits, defendable. And they waited. 0800. Nothing. 0900. Still nothing. 10 o'clock. Movement. German patrol. 12 men, moving cautious, weapons ready, eyes scanning, looking for something, looking for Silas and Henderson. They're hunting us now, Henderson whispered. Good. Makes them predictable. Silas counted them, identified the leader. Sergeant. Maybe 35. Experienced, moving smart, using cover, professional. Smart move would be to let them pass, stay hidden, survive, wait for a better opportunity. But smart wasn't always right. These men were hunting Americans. If not Silas, then someone else. If not today, then tomorrow. Better to end it here. He whispered to Henderson, I'll take the leader. You take whoever moves first after. Then we displace fast.
That's a lot of Germans, kid.
I know. Your call. Silas made the call. He fired. The German sergeant dropped, hit in the chest, dead before he hit the ground. Chaos erupted. The patrol scattered, looking for cover, shouting, trying to identify where the shot came from. Henderson fired, dropped another. German corporal, stopped mid-run. Silas worked the bolt, methodical, calm, like he was back on the range, like this was training. Aim, fire, bolt, aim, fire, bolt, muscle memory, thousands of repetitions making the movement automatic. The Germans located them, returned fire, bullets punched through the bunker walls, concrete dust everywhere, chips flying. Silas didn't stop, just kept shooting, kept moving, kept functioning. Over the next 12 minutes, he dropped 8 targets. Henderson got 2 more. Day 4. Total, 10 kills. Running total, 24. The remaining 2 Germans fled, running, weapons abandoned, just trying to survive. Silas let them go.
Ammunition was finite. Had to conserve, had to prioritize.
Reload, Henderson said. Silas did. Hands steady. Muscle memory. 10 seconds to reload. 20 to check. 30 back in position. We need to move, Henderson said. They'll call in artillery. Hit this position hard. They grabbed their gear, abandoned the bunker, moved 300 yards south, found new cover, dense trees, good concealment. 20 minutes later, German artillery hammered the bunker. Shell after shell, the ground shaking, trees falling, reduced the bunker to rubble, to dust. If they'd stayed, they'd be dead. Never stay where you shoot. 1600 hours. Silas was exhausted, hadn't eaten since yesterday, hadn't slept in 2 days. Running on adrenaline and stubbornness. Henderson looked worse, face grey, hands shaking slightly. The old man was running on fumes. Sergeant, you need rest. So do you, kid. I'm 17. You're not. Henderson smiled despite himself,
Despite the exhaustion.
Thanks for reminding me. Feel a lot better now. They found a relatively dry spot under a destroyed half-track, crawled underneath, out of the rain, shared a can of cold beans, their last food. It tasted like heaven. Tomorrow, Henderson said between bites, tomorrow we end this. How? We find Fisher. We don't wait for him to come to us. We hunt him down, finish it. That's suicide. Maybe, maybe not. But we can't keep playing defense. He's got unlimited men. We don't. Eventually he'll wear us down. Get lucky. We'll make a mistake. Silas knew Henderson was right. So we take the fight to him. Yeah, we do. One last push. Winner takes all. They finished the beans in silence, scraping the can, getting every last bit. As darkness fell, Henderson pulled out a cigarette, lit it. Last one. Took a long drag. Kid, I need to tell you something. What's that, Sergeant? You're the best natural I've ever seen.
Better than anyone I worked with in the First War. Better than anyone I've seen in this one. Better than me at my peak.
I'm just doing what you taught me. No, you're doing more than that. The mirror thing. That was all you. That kind of innovation. It's rare. Real rare. Can't be taught. Either you got it or you don't. You got it. Silas didn't know what to say. I'm proud to have spotted for you, Henderson continued. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that. You're the best I ever worked with. Your daddy would be proud. Something tight loosened in Silas's chest. "Thank you, Sergeant. And one more thing." "What's that?" "If I don't make it, if Fisher gets me, don't try to get revenge, don't get stupid, just finish the job. Then go home, live your life. That's an order." "Sergeant, you're talking like we're going to die." "Maybe we are, maybe we're not. But war don't give you second chances to say things." He looked at Silas, really looked at him. "So I'm saying it now. You're a hell of a soldier. You're going to do great things, if you survive." "When I survive?" "When you survive," Henderson smiled. "There you go, that's the spirit." They didn't speak again that night, just sat in the darkness, listening to the forest, to the rain, to the war, knowing that tomorrow, one way or another, it would end. Either they would kill Fisher, or Fisher would kill them. The forest didn't care which. It would drink their blood either way. November 22nd, 1944, the last day. Silas woke before dawn to find Henderson already gone. No note this time, just boot prints in the frost heading northeast, toward Fisher's last known position, toward the end. Silas grabbed his rifle, checked the action, loaded, ready, followed. The forest was silent, the kind of silence that comes before death, before the world ends for someone. No birds, no wind, no sound except his own breathing and the crunch of frozen ground under boots. He found Henderson 200 yards out, crouched behind a granite outcrop, glassing the ridge ahead. Steam rising from his coffee, real coffee, saved for special occasions. This qualified. "Sergeant?" Henderson didn't turn. "Took you long enough." "What are we looking at?" "Fisher's nest. Has to be. Perfect position. Overlooks our entire sector. Multiple escape routes. Good cover." Silas settled in beside him, looked through his scope. The ridge was maybe 400 yards away. Rocky, steep, good defensible terrain. And somewhere up there, Klaus Fischer was waiting for the end, same as them. "How do you want to play this?" Silas asked. Henderson lowered his binoculars. His face was drawn, tired, but his eyes were sharp, clear, resolved. "We don't. I do." "What?" "Listen to me, kid. Fisher knows we're coming. He's been waiting for this, planning for it. This is his ground, his terms. So he's set a trap. A good one. Anyone goes up that ridge dies. Simple as that. Then how? I'm the bait." Silas felt cold spread through his chest, into his limbs. "No." "Yes. I move up the left approach, draw his fire. You circle right. When he shoots at me, you'll have maybe 3 seconds to spot his muzzle flash and take him. That's not a plan. That's suicide. It's the only play we got. Only way to beat him." "Sergeant." "Kid." Henderson looked at him, really looked at him, eyes holding weight. "I'm 56 years old. Lungs half gone from gas in the First War. Hands shake when it gets cold. Heart's not what it used to be. This is my last fight. I can feel it." "You don't know that." "Yeah, I do. Been feeling it for days now. Whatever comes next, I ain't gonna see it. But you are." "So you're just giving up?" "No. I'm making sure you live. Someone's got to go home and tell this story. Might as well be you. Someone's got to remember Murphy, Walsh, Foster, all of them. You can do that. I can't." Silas wanted to argue, to tell Henderson he was wrong, that they'd both make it out, that the war would end, and they'd go home and everything would be fine. But he'd learned not to lie to himself. "All right," he said quietly. "All right." Henderson smiled, relief, gratitude. "Good man. Give me 15 minutes to get in position. When you hear my first shot, you move, fast as you can. Get to that boulder cluster on the right slope. Should give you angle on his position. And if he gets you before I'm set? Then you haul ass back to the company and let someone else deal with Fisher. Don't be a hero. Heroes die quick. Just survive. Live. That's an order." Henderson checked his rifle, loaded a fresh magazine. 8 rounds. Probably not enough. Stood up. "Sergeant." Yeah? It's been an honor. Honor's a fancy word for being scared shitless together. Henderson grinned. But yeah, same here, kid.
You're the best I ever worked with. Don't forget that. And then he was gone, moving low, fast for an old man, disappearing into the grey dawn. Silas counted to 900. 15 minutes exactly. Watched the seconds tick by, each one feeling like forever. Then he heard it. Crack. Henderson's rifle, single shot, deliberate, loud, announcing his presence, drawing Fisher's attention. Here I am, come and get me. Silas moved. The slope was steep, loose rock, every step threatening to slide, to give away position. But Silas had grown up in mountains, knew how to move on bad ground, how to distribute weight, how to find solid footing. He reached the boulder cluster in 90 seconds, dropped behind cover, brought his rifle up, scanned the ridge. Where was Fisher? Another shot from Henderson's position, closer to the ridge now. The old man was pushing hard, giving Silas time, giving him the shot. And then Silas saw it. Muzzle flash, brief, 300 yards up, behind a rocky shelf. Fisher had taken the bait. Silas swung his rifle, found the position, searched for a target. Nothing, just rock and shadow. Fisher was too good to expose himself. Henderson fired again, drawing Fisher's attention, pulling his focus. And this time Fisher made a mistake. He shifted, just slightly, just for a second, to get a better angle on Henderson. And for half a second, his profile showed. Dark shape against grey rock. Silas didn't think, didn't hesitate, didn't calculate, just shot. Muscle memory, training, instinct, exhaled, squeezed. Crack. The rifle bucked against his shoulder. Through the scope, Silas saw Fisher jerk, saw him fall back behind cover. Hit. But how bad? Flesh wound? Kill shot? Silas worked the bolt, loaded another round. Smooth, automatic. Waited. 10 seconds. 20. Nothing. And then, movement. Fisher stood up, fully exposed, rifle raised, no cover, not aiming at Henderson, aiming at Silas. Their eyes met through the scopes, 400 yards apart, but seeing each other clear. Two hunters. End of the line. Final moment. Recognition. Respect. Understanding. They fired simultaneously. 2 rifles. 2 bullets. 2 trajectories crossing in the cold morning air. Fisher's round hit the boulder 6 inches from Silas's head. Rock fragments cut his cheek, stinging, sharp, blood running. Silas's round hit Fisher in the chest, center mass, perfect shot. The German staggered, tried to work his bolt, tried to chamber another round, couldn't, dropped to his knees, slowly, like he was praying. Fell forward, face in the dirt, didn't move again. Silence, absolute silence, the forest holding its breath. Silas stayed frozen, scope still on Fisher's position, waiting for movement, for the trick, for Fisher to pop up shooting. None came. From Henderson's position, "Kid, you hit?" "Negative. You?" "I'm good." "Fisher." "Down." "Stay on him. Could be faking." Silas stayed on him. 1 minute, 5, 10. Fisher didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't do anything. Finally, Henderson emerged from cover, rifle up, advancing careful, professional, taking nothing for granted. Silas provided overwatch, tracking Henderson through the scope, ready to drop anything that moved, anything that threatened. Henderson reached Fisher's position, checked the body, felt for pulse, gave a thumbs up, confirmed kill. Day 5. Total, 3 kills, Fisher plus 2 from earlier patrol. Final count, 27 confirmed kills. Silas lowered his rifle. Hauptmann Klaus Fischer was dead. The ghost of the Hurtgen had been laid to rest. The war would continue, men would die, the forest would keep drinking blood. But Fischer wouldn't kill anyone else. 31 kills, final number, no more. Silas should have felt something, relief, triumph, satisfaction. He felt nothing, just tired, empty, used up. The machine had done its job, now it could rest. They buried Fisher where he fell, not because regulations required it, They didn't. Enemy dead were usually left for graves registration. Let them handle it. But Henderson insisted. Man this good deserves respect, he said, digging with his entrenching tool. Even if he was trying to kill us, maybe especially because of it. Silas helped dig. The ground was frozen. Hard work, but necessary. Right. When the hole was deep enough, they lowered Fisher in. Careful, gentle, like it mattered. He looked younger dead, maybe 29, 30 at most. Hard to tell with the blood, with the damage. His uniform was neat, well maintained, clean despite the forest, the uniform of a professional. In his pockets they found a wallet with German marks, 83 marks. Not much. Enough. A photograph of a woman, pretty, dark hair, sad eyes, writing on the back in German script, Mein Liebling, Klaus, bis wir uns wiedersehen, my darling, Klaus, until we meet again. A small leather journal, worn, well used, filled with notes, and tucked in his coat 3 compact mirrors. Henderson held them up. Son of a bitch! He really was using the same trick. Silas took the journal, flipped through it slowly, carefully, written in German mostly, but some phrases in English, annotations, notes about wind, distance, elevation, specific kills, the working notebook of a master craftsman, of an artist, of a professional, and on the last page, dated November 20th, a sentence in clear English, written carefully, deliberately, like he knew someone might read it someday. The American with the mirrors is exceptional. If I fall, it will be to a worthy opponent. Silas read it twice, 3 times, felt something shift in his chest, something crack, something break. Fisher had known, had seen what Silas was doing, had recognized the innovation, the skill, and had respected it. 2 men, different uniforms, same war, same tricks, same deadly purpose, understanding each other across the scope. He knew, Silas said quietly. He knew about the mirrors. Henderson looked at the journal, read the passage, nodded slowly. Looks like. Guess that makes you 2 the only mirror snipers in the whole damn war. Guess so. They finished burying Fisher, covered him with rocks to keep animals away, to mark the spot. Henderson said a few words, not a prayer exactly, just acknowledgement, respect. Klaus Fischer, German soldier, Hauptmann, damn good shot, worthy opponent, may he rest. It was enough. They headed back to American lines as the sun finally broke through the clouds. First real sunlight in days. Warm, bright. The forest looked different in the light, less ominous, more like just trees, just ground, just a place. But Silas knew better. The Hurtgen would always be dark. No amount of sun could change that. Too much blood. Too many ghosts. November 23rd. Captain Morrison greeted them at the company CP. Looked relieved, surprised, like he hadn't expected to see them again. Henderson, Garrett, you're alive. Yes, sir. Fisher? Dead, sir, Henderson reported. Garrett got him yesterday morning. Clean shot, 400 yards, center mass. Morrison studied Silas, really looked at him, seeing something different than 5 days ago. That true, Private? Yes, sir, but Sergeant Henderson drew his fire. Wouldn't have gotten the shot without him, without the setup. Teamwork, I like it. Morrison made a note in his log. Final count? Henderson consulted his tally book, flipped through pages, tallied numbers. Garrett, 27 confirmed kills over 5 days, including Fisher, his spotter, and 25 others, all verified. Morrison whistled low, long. 27 in 5 days. That's exceptional. That's record-setting. Kid's something special, sir. I can see that. Morrison looked at Silas. How'd you do it? We've been trying to get Fisher for 2 weeks. Lost 8 men. You did it in 5 days. Silas hesitated. The mirror trick was effective. Too effective. If he explained it, other men would try it. And some of them would die. Murphy's face flashed in his mind, dead because he'd tried something he didn't understand. something he wasn't ready for. "Just got lucky, sir. Right place, right time." Morrison didn't buy it. Too smart, too experienced. Bullshit. Henderson? "Sir, Garrett used a technique he developed, based on his background, mining. It's effective, proved that, but also dangerous if not done right. Murphy already found that out." "I heard about Murphy." Morrison's face darkened, genuine grief. He'd sent Murphy out there, had approved the patrol. "You think more men will try it? Copy Garrett?" "Word's already spreading, sir. Can't stop it. Men talk. Men see results." Morrison thought for a moment, making decisions, calculating odds. "All right, here's what we do. Garrett, you'll train anyone who wants to learn, but only the ones with patience, the ones who got the temperament for it, the ones who can do it right. Clear?" "Yes, sir. And I'm recommending you for the Bronze Star with valor. What you did here saved lives. A lot of them. Fisher would have kept killing. You stopped him." "Sir, I'd rather you didn't make a big deal out of this. The technique works, but it's not for everyone. Don't want more Murphys." "Noted, but the medal stands. You earned it. You both did." Morrison looked at Henderson. "I'm putting you in for a commendation too, Sergeant. You've been doing this since the First War. Time someone recognized it." "Not necessary, sir." "It is. You trained this kid, made him what he is. That's worth something." "Thank you, sir. Now get some rest. Both of you. You look like death. Sleep. Eat. Clean up. That's an order." "Yes, sir." They saluted, turned to leave. "Garrett." "Sir, your daddy taught you well. He should be proud. Real proud." Something in Silas's chest tightened, loosened, broke. "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." The war ended May 8, 1945. Silas was in Austria when he heard, sitting in a requisitioned house, drinking liberated German beer. Warm, flat, but beer. Victory in Europe. Everyone celebrated, shouting, singing, dancing, crying. Men who'd held it together for years finally breaking down. Relief, joy, disbelief. It was over. They'd survived. They were going home. Silas went outside, sat alone, looked at the mountains, beautiful, peaceful, quiet. The war was over. He'd survived. Against all odds, against probability. He should have felt something. Joy, relief, anything. But all he felt was tired, empty, numb, like something inside him had burned out and would never light again. Henderson had survived too. Barely. The old man had caught shrapnel in the leg during the final push into Germany. March 45. Nothing fatal, but enough to send him home. Silas had gotten one letter from him. Brief, typical Henderson, no wasted words. "Kid, made it, going home to Pennsylvania. You do the same, don't look back. War's over, time to live. Roy." Good advice. Silas intended to follow it. September 1946. Silas Garrett stepped off a bus in Thornton Hollow, West Virginia. Population 412, same as when he left. Maybe less. Hard to tell. Nothing had changed. Same houses, same streets, same mountains, same sky. But everything was different, because Silas was different. His father met him at the bus stop, older now, greyer, thinner. The mine had kept taking even when it was closed, but his hands were still strong when he gripped Silas's shoulder. Still had the calluses, the scars, the strength. "Welcome home, son." "Thanks, Dad." They walked back to the house. Didn't talk about the war. Ezekiel knew better than to ask. Knew what questions not to ask. Men who saw combat didn't want to talk about it, couldn't talk about it. Some things couldn't be put into words. They talked about the mine instead. Black Thunder had reopened. New owners, different management, better equipment, safer, supposedly. They needed workers. Silas started the next Monday, back in the dark, back in the tunnels, back to the work he'd done before the war. Like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't killed 27 men. Like he was still the kid who'd left 3 years ago. But he wasn't that kid anymore. That kid was dead. buried somewhere in the Hurtgen forest along with everyone else. The years passed. 1947. Silas met Margaret O'Brien at a church social. Easter Sunday. The whole valley turned out, everyone who was left. She was a teacher's daughter from the next town over, Blacksville, 23 years old, auburn hair pulled back, green eyes that saw more than they should, smart eyes,
Knowing eyes. They stood in line for coffee. Someone introduced them.
"Margaret, this is Silas Garrett, just got back from the war." She looked at him directly, no hesitation, no fear. "You were in Europe?" Not a question, a statement, like she knew, like she could see it on him. "Yes, ma'am." "You don't want to talk about it?" "No, ma'am." She nodded, stirred her coffee, added sugar. "My brother didn't either, Daniel, before he died at Anzio." Something passed between them, recognition, understanding, two people carrying the same weight, the same burden, two people who knew loss, who knew silence, who knew what it meant to keep going when part of you died. "I'm sorry," Silas said, meant it. "So am I." She looked at him again, studied him. "But we keep living anyway, don't we?" "Yes, ma'am." "Margaret," not ma'am, makes me sound old. "Margaret." They talked for an hour, about nothing important, about everything important, the weather, the church, the mine reopening,
The new teacher at the school.
not about the war, not about Daniel, not about the things that haunted them, not about the nightmares, the guilt, the survivor's weight, just simple conversation, easy, comfortable, normal, like they'd known each other for years. When she left, she said, "I'm here most Sundays, if you need someone who understands." "I might," Silas said. He showed up the next Sunday, and the next, and the next. By summer they were walking together after church, talking, sometimes just sitting in silence. Silence was good. Silence was understanding. Sometimes silence said more than words. Margaret never asked about the war, never pushed, never pried. But sometimes, when the conversation lulled, when Silas got that distant look, she would say, "Daniel used to look like that. Distant. Like part of him was still over there." And Silas would nod, because she understood, because she'd seen it before, because she knew what it meant to love someone who'd seen too much. They married in November 1948. Small ceremony, just family, simple, quiet. Margaret wore a simple dress, white, borrowed from her cousin. Silas wore his dress uniform, bronze star on his chest. He'd never worn it before, kept it in a drawer. "You earned it," Margaret said when she saw him in uniform. "Wear it. Be proud." So he did, just that once. They moved into a small house on the edge of Thornton Hollow. 2 bedrooms, enough room for a family, for a future. A son came in 49, James, named after Captain Morrison. Good name, strong name. A daughter in 51, Eleanor, named after Silas's mother. She would have liked that. Silas worked in the mine, same shift his father worked, same tunnels, same darkness. Came home dirty, coal dust in every pore, every wrinkle, every line. Margaret had dinner waiting. Simple food, good food, enough. Simple life, quiet life, normal life. Good life. But sometimes, late at night, the nightmares came. Fisher's face through the scope, Murphy's death, Henderson's voice, "I'm proud to have spotted for you." Walsh bleeding out, Foster with the hole in his head, Thompson dead for glancing wrong. 27 faces. Some he remembered, most he didn't. And Margaret would wake, would hold him, wouldn't ask questions, wouldn't demand explanations, just held him until the shaking stopped, until the breathing slowed, until he came back. That was enough. That was everything. Henderson wrote letters for a few years, then they stopped. Short letters, just updates, news, nothing deep. Kid, still alive, back hurts, leg hurts, everything hurts, getting old, but still here. Roy, kid, grandkid born, girl, Sarah, named after Walsh's fiancée, seemed right. Roy, kid, thinking about the forest, about Fisher, about mirrors. Still can't believe we made it. Roy. Then, silence. Silas heard through the grapevine that Roy Henderson had died in 1958. Heart attack. February. Middle of the night. Quick. Painless. Lucky bastard. Silas went to the funeral. Philadelphia. Small service. Mostly family. A few veterans. Not many left. Henderson's daughter thanked him for coming. She was maybe 30. Pretty. Had her father's eyes. "Dad talked about you," she said. "Said you were the best he ever worked with. Said you saved his life in the Hurtgen. He was a good man. Good teacher. He said you saved his life. More than once. We saved each other. That's how it works. That's how you survive." She handed him something. A small box. Wrapped in brown paper. "He wanted you to have this." Inside was Henderson's spotoscope, the one he'd used in the Hurtgen. Scratched, dented, but functional. And a note, written in Henderson's cramped handwriting. "Kid, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't mourn. I lived longer than I deserved. The scope's yours. Remember, wise men use light to survive. You're the wisest I ever met. Live well. Tell our story. Make it matter. Roy." Silas drove home with the scope on the seat beside him. Didn't open the box again for 15 years. October 1973. Silas was 48 years old. Still working in the mine. Grayer now, slower, lines deeper, but still strong. A letter came to the house. Postmarked Germany, Munich. Margaret brought it to him. Looked at it curious. "You expecting something from overseas?" No. He opened it. Careful, slow. Inside was a letter. Typed. Official-looking. University letterhead. "Dear Mr. Garrett, my name is Dr. Friedrich Weber. I am a historian at the University of Munich, specializing in World War II, military tactics, and innovations. I am writing because I recently discovered the personal journal of my uncle, Hauptmann Klaus Fischer, who served in the Wehrmacht during the war. In his journal, dated November 1944, he makes reference to an American sniper who employed mirrors as a tactical innovation. He described this soldier as exceptional and expressed profound respect for the technique. Through military records and after-action reports, I believe you are the soldier he referenced. I am conducting research on unconventional tactics during the war and would be honored if you would be willing to share your recollections of this period. Additionally, I feel compelled to tell you that my uncle's final entry spoke of you with great respect. As enemies, you faced each other. As soldiers, you understood each other. If you are willing, I would like to send you a copy of the relevant journal pages. With respect and gratitude, Dr. Friedrich Weber." Silas read the letter 3 times, 4 times. Fischer had written about him, had recognized what he'd done, had understood, had respected. After 29 years of silence, the past had reached out and tapped him on the shoulder, saying, "Remember me. Remember what we did. Remember what it meant." He wrote back that evening. Simple letter, direct, confirming he was the soldier in question, agreeing to receive the journal pages, willing to talk. 3 weeks later, a package arrived. Photocopies of Fischer's journal, November 1944, 29 years ago, a lifetime ago. Silas read them slowly. Margaret helped translate. Her high school German was rusty but good enough, better than his. They sat together at the kitchen table, coffee growing cold, reading, translating, understanding. The meaning was clear. Fischer had seen the mirrors, had understood immediately what Silas was doing, the innovation, the application, had adapted his own tactics to counter it, had used mirrors himself, had recognized a worthy opponent, had respected the skill, the patience, the craft. And on the final page, dated November 20th, the passage that made Silas's chest tighten, that made his hands shake, that made 29 years collapse into nothing. The American uses our own methods against us. Mirrors, deception, psychology. He is young, but wise beyond his years. If our positions were reversed, I believe we could have been friends. Perhaps we would have worked together, taught together. War makes enemies of men who should be brothers. Tomorrow, I will try again to kill him. He will try again to kill me. One of us will succeed. I hope, whoever falls, the survivor remembers we were both just trying to go home. We were both just doing our duty. We were both just soldiers, caught in history's machine. If I fall, I hope it is to a worthy opponent. I believe he is worthy. Silas set down the papers, couldn't speak, couldn't move, stared at nothing, at everything. For 29 years, he'd carried the weight of Fisher's death, the knowledge that he'd killed a good man, a professional, a fellow craftsman, and now he knew Fisher had felt the same, had carried the same weight, had understood the same truth. Two soldiers, same war, same burden, same understanding, recognizing each other across the gulf of time and death. Margaret took his hand, squeezed, said nothing, understood everything. Silas wrote back to Dr. Weber. Longer letter this time, told him everything. The mirrors, the hunt, the final shot, the burial, the respect, and the years of silence after, the weight, the nightmares, the cost. Dr. Weber published a paper in 1975, small academic journal, Military History Quarterly, limited readership, mostly academics and veterans. But it told the story, both sides, American and German, the mirror war, the mutual respect, the understanding that transcended uniform and nation. A few veterans read it, contacted Silas, shared their own stories, their own burdens, their own weight. Slowly, carefully, Silas began to talk. Not much, not often, but some. Not about killing, not about glory, not about victory, about two men who'd used light to survive in darkness, who'd recognized each other across the scope, who'd understood what it meant to be caught in history's machine. 1998. The 28th Infantry Division held a reunion in Philadelphia. 50th anniversary of the end, half a century later. Silas almost didn't go. He was 73. Margaret had died 2 years before. Cancer, pancreatic, quick but brutal. The kids were grown, gone to their own lives. James in Ohio, Eleanor in Virginia. Good jobs, good families. But something made him buy the bus ticket. Something made him go. The reunion was smaller than expected. Most of the Hurtgen veterans were dead, gone. Just memories now. Those who remained were old, fragile, grey, bent. But they remembered, eyes still sharp, minds still clear. A young historian was there, woman, maybe 30, writing a book about the division, about the Hurtgen. She interviewed Silas, asked about the forest, about Fisher, about the mirrors, about everything. Silas told her. All of it, held nothing back. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment, thinking, processing. "That's remarkable," she said finally. "Why didn't you talk about this before? Why wait 50 years? Didn't seem important, seemed like ancient history, water under the bridge. Mr. Garrett, this is exactly the kind of story people need to hear. Innovation under pressure, respect for the enemy, the human cost of war, the burden of survival. People don't want the human side. They want heroes and villains, good guys and bad guys, simple stories. Some people do, but the smart ones want the truth, want to understand, want to learn." She included his story in her book, published in 2000, The Hurtgen, Personal Accounts from America's Bloodiest Battle. Small press, limited distribution, maybe 5,000 copies. But it found readers, veterans mostly, their families, people who understood, people who wanted to know. And in 2001, the Army wrote to Silas. They were developing new tactical equipment, laser-based deception systems, false signature generators, based partly on his mirror technique, updated, modernized, effective. Would he be willing to consult, share insights, help develop doctrine? Silas said no, polite but firm. He was done with tricks, done with war, done with killing. He'd lived his life, raised his family, done his time in the darkness. The mine had finally closed in '96, Black Thunder's last breath. last gasp. Silas had been one of the last miners out, walked away from those tunnels for the final time at 71 years old, and he'd never looked back, never wanted to. Some doors, once closed, should stay closed. March 15, 2003. Silas Garrett died in his sleep, peaceful, quiet, no pain, no struggle, the way he'd always hoped it would be. His children found him in the morning, still in bed, hands folded on his chest, like he was sleeping. On the nightstand beside him, Henderson's spotoscope, still in its box, still functional, and the compact mirror from the Hurtgen forest, the pink one, the first one, cracked, tarnished, dulled, but still capable of catching light, still capable of bending it, still capable of saving lives. The funeral was small. Thornton Hollow had shrunk to less than 100 people. The town was dying. The mine was closed. The young had left. Most everyone was gone, dead or departed. But 43 people showed up anyway. Some were family, James and Eleanor, their kids, grandkids Silas barely knew. Some were friends, old men from the mine, women from church, people who'd known him forever, and 6 were veterans, men Silas had served with, men who remembered, men who understood. They told stories, not about killing, not about fishing, not about the war, about the man, quiet, humble, good with his hands, patient teacher, kind neighbor. The kid from the coal mine who'd learned to bend light, who'd come home, who'd lived. They buried him in the cemetery overlooking the valley. Same place his father was buried, same place Margaret rested. Simple headstone, plain granite, no flourishes. Silas Garrett, 1925 to 2003. Beloved father and grandfather, private first class, 28th Infantry Division, Bronze Star with valor. No mention of kills, no list of achievements, no story of the mirrors, just a name, dates, a rank, a medal. The way he would have wanted it, simple, honest, true. 2024. A documentary filmmaker visited Thornton Hollow, making a film about forgotten innovations of World War II. She'd read about Silas Garrett, the mirror technique, the duel with Fisher, the mutual respect. She interviewed his son, James, now 75 himself, retired, living in Ohio. Did your father ever talk about the war? Not much. Maybe 5 times in my whole life. Told me once that he'd done things he wasn't proud of, but necessary things, things that had to be done. Did he ever regret it? The mirrors? The innovation? He regretted that other men died trying to copy him, Murphy especially. That haunted him. But the technique itself? No. He said it saved lives, including his own, including Henderson's, including men he never met. What happened to the mirrors, the ones he used? He kept one, the first one, pink compact mirror from a bombed house in Germany. It's in the museum now, Imperial War Museum in London. They asked for it after he died, said it belonged to history. And what about his legacy? What should people remember? James thought for a long moment, looking out the window, seeing something his interviewer couldn't. That sometimes the best weapons are the simplest, that innovation comes from necessity, from desperation, from ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and that even enemies can respect each other, can understand each other, can recognize craft and skill and humanity. That war doesn't have to destroy that, doesn't have to erase it. That's beautiful. That's what he taught me, not with words, he never talked about it, but with how he lived, how he treated people, how he remembered. The documentary aired in 2025, won awards, Emmys, accolades. Military academies began teaching the mirror technique, not as primary doctrine, but as an example of adaptive thinking, of innovation under pressure, of what happens when ordinary people face extraordinary circumstances. And in the Hurtgen forest, now peaceful, now quiet, now just trees and trails and memorials, someone placed a small memorial, private, unofficial, just a stone marker, 2 names carved careful, professional, respectful. PFC. Silas Garrett, U.S. Army Hauptmann. Klaus Fischer, Wehrmacht 2 soldiers. One innovation, mutual respect. Beneath the names, a single compact mirror. Pink, cracked, sealed in glass and resin, preserved, catching sunlight, bending it, reflecting it, the way Silas Garrett had taught light to dance 80 years before. Epilogue. The sun sets over the Appalachian Mountains, red sky, purple clouds, beautiful, eternal. In Thornton Hollow, the old mine entrance is sealed now. Concrete, steel, warning signs, danger, keep out, abandoned mine. But sometimes, on clear mornings when the light is right, you can see something. A flash, brief, like sunlight catching glass. Like someone deep in the earth, 300 feet down, sending signals through the dark. Saying, I'm here. I survived. I remember. The mirrors are gone. Scattered. Museums, collections, history. The men are gone. Buried. Dust. Memory. But the light remains. Always bending. Always finding a way through. Always surviving. That's what Silas Garrett taught. That's what his father taught before him. Wise men use light to survive, and the wisest remember, we were all just trying to go home. We were all just doing our duty. We were all just caught in history's machine. And sometimes, if we're lucky, if we're patient, if we're wise, we find our way back. We bend the light. We survive the dark. We go home. And we remember. We remember what it cost, who we lost, who we were. We remember that even in war, even in darkness, even in the forest that drinks blood, there can be respect, understanding, humanity. We remember that the enemy across the scope might be a mirror of ourselves, might be doing the same thing, might be just as scared, just as desperate, just as human. We remember Silas and Fisher, Henderson and Murphy, Walsh and Foster, all of them. We remember the light they used to survive, the mirrors they placed in darkness, and we carry their stories forward into the future, into the light, because that's what survivors do. They remember, they honor, they live. And sometimes, when the light is right, when the angle is perfect, we can still see them. Flashing signals through the dark, bending light around corners, finding ways to survive, saying, we were here, we mattered, we endured, remember us, and we do.